It was one of those December mornings in Brooklyn where your coffee turns cold faster than your thoughts can settle. I stared at my screen. 7 missed calls, all from my dad. My name's Ethan Carter. I'm 29. And I just moved into my own place after years of living under the same roof as the people who raised me and constantly forgot. I had a mind of my own. The place isn't big, but it's mine. And after landing a full-time copywriting job at a solid ad agency, I finally feel like I have breathing room. Financial independence? Hard-earned. Emotional independence? Still a work in progress. I knew why my dad was calling before I even listened to a voicemail. Christmas was coming up, and Christmas in my family never meant holiday spirit. For me, it meant unpaid babysitting, forced smiles, and a week of chaos wrapped in red and green. Every year since I was old enough to pour juice into a sippy cup, I'd been the designated cousin wrangler. While the grown-ups sipped wine and clinked glasses, I was the one keeping sugar-high kids from bodies slamming each other into the tree. No one ever asked if I wanted to. This year, I had plans. Not just work deadlines or errands. I was supposed to be going on a cabin trip with friends. But my gut told me I wouldn't even make it to packing. When I finally called back, Dad picked up on the first ring. "Ethan, finally. Been trying to reach you," I noticed. I sipped my lukewarm coffee, already regretting this call. "What are your plans for Christmas?" His tone was casual. Too casual, the usual, I guess? "Come home, eat, see the fam. You know. Great, because this year is a little different." My stomach dropped. "Different how?" "Well," he cleared his throat. "Uncle Brian had this great idea. The adults are going on a cruise Caribbean, from Christmas Eve through New Year's." I paused. "All of you?" "Yep, everyone. Me, your mum, Aunt Karen, Brian, the whole gang. And I'm supposed to?" He hesitated. "That always means bad news. Well, Nathan, Sophie and Ellie are still too young for that kind of trip. So we were hoping you could stay at the house and look after them while we're gone." I blinked. "You want me to spend a week watching 3 kids alone so you guys can sip pina coladas in St. Lucia? Come on, Ethan, you're great with the kids. And you don't have kids of your own, so this is good practice." That one hit harder than expected. "Dad, I'm not your built-in babysitter. I have a life. I have plans. But it's for family. We already bought the tickets. Non-refundable." There it was. The classic Carter guilt trip. "You're being selfish," he added when I didn't reply. That word selfish had been weaponized against me for most of my life. But I wasn't a teenager anymore. I had rent to pay, work to do, and my own damn holidays to enjoy. "I'm not doing it," I said, voice even. "I'm not coming home if you expect me to parent your grandkids." "Ethan, don't be dramatic. I'm serious," he sighed. "Fine. Your mother will call you." She did. Immediately. So did Uncle Brian. And even Aunt Karen texted me something passive-aggressive about thinking of the children. I didn't respond. That night, I called my best friend, Dylan. He knew the drill. "Let me guess," he said before I even spoke. "They want you to babysit again?" "Not want expect." "Tell them no, and don't backpedal this time." "I already did." Dylan paused. "Good. Ethan, it's time they realize you're not some free utility." And for the first time in a long while, I believed him. Christmas Eve came faster than expected, and I still wasn't sure if I'd made the right call. I hadn't spoken to my parents since that last conversation. Just a handful of awkward texts from my mum, Linda, and one voicemail that ended with my dad saying, "Think about what the kids would want." Classic manipulation disguised as sentiment. Against my better judgment and maybe out of guilt, I agreed to visit on Christmas morning. Just a quick in and out. Drop off gifts, smile for an hour, then back to my own plans. That was the deal. And I made it very clear I would not be babysitting. I texted them the night before. Arriving around 11 am tomorrow. Merry Christmas. The reply was swift. Understood. See you soon. Love, Dad. It was. Suspiciously civil. That morning, I got up early, wrapped the presents Nathan's favourite graphic novel series, a Lego dinosaur set for Sophie and a plush unicorn for little Ellie. I even baked cookies. Yeah, I know. Sucker move. But they were just kids, not part of the adult BS holiday music played from my car's speakers as I drove. It almost felt like peace, until I pulled into the driveway. Their house looked festive. Wreath on the door, lights twinkling, but something was off. No extra cars, no noise, just silence. I rang the bell, and after a few seconds, Nathan opened it, beaming. Ethan. You came. I stepped in, confused. Where's everyone? He looked up at me, totally innocent. They left this morning. You were going to take care of us, right? I froze. What do you mean left? Grandpa Thomas and Grandma Linda said you'd be here all week. They went on their trip. My jaw clenched. Sophie ran in next, hugging my leg, followed by little Ellie toddling in behind her. Did you bring the unicorn? She squeaked. Yeah, I did. I forced a smile, but inside I was shaking. I walked them into the living room, where breakfast leftovers sat on the table. The house was neatly set up TV remote, kid-friendly snacks, instructions on the fridge, and a note. Ethan, we left on the 9. OAM FLIGHT meals for the week are labelled in the fridge. Emergency contacts are listed. Bedtime, Ellie at 7 p.m, Sophie and Nathan at 8:30 p.m. Thank you. We trust you. Love, Dad and Mum. They tricked me. I stood there gripping the note, rage burning behind my eyes. They had gaslit me into agreeing to a visit, then took off, counting on me to fold once I saw the kids. My phone buzzed. Thomas Carter. I answered. You're there. Great. How are the kids? What the hell is wrong with you? I snapped. Ethan, relax. You're already there. It just made sense. I said no. I was clear. This is manipulative as hell. You won't really leave, right? You're responsible. You wouldn't call the cops over this. I went cold. Try me. There was a pause. Wait, we're still at the airport. The flight hasn't left yet. Good. You've got 60 minutes. If you're not back by then, I'm calling CPS. Ethan, be reasonable. 1 hour. Clock's ticking. Click. I walked back into the living room, where the kids were now diving into their gifts. It wasn't their fault. They didn't know. They were excited, happy. I smiled and joined them on the floor. I read a storybook. I handed out cookies, but my eyes kept flicking to the clock. At minute 50, I saw headlights. Cars pulled up. Thomas, Linda, Brian and Karen all emerged, backpacks slung, sunglasses off. Caught. Trapped. Kids, Linda called. They ran to the door. I stayed behind. Thomas approached. Ethan, listen. I don't need an explanation, I said. I'm leaving. It's Christmas. Let's spend it as a family. I gave him a look that could freeze fire. You don't treat me like family. You treat me like a convenient service. Without another word, I walked through the kitchen, slipped out the back, and drove off. And for the first time in my life, I didn't look back. The day after Christmas, my apartment felt like a bunker. Quiet, safe, but tense, like the world outside was waiting to kick the door in. I didn't call anyone, didn't respond to messages. I needed time to breathe, to make sense of how far my own parents were willing to go just to avoid being slightly inconvenienced on a holiday. What I didn't expect, what I should have expected, was Linda's Facebook post. It hit my feed just after lunch. A mutual friend tagged me in the comments. The caption read, "It's heartbreaking when someone in the family turns their back on what truly matters. The children were so excited, and now they're left disappointed. We never imagined such selfishness during the holidays. No names, but everyone knew who it was about." My mouth actually fell open. She made herself the victim. And the comments? Oh, they were worse. Kids deserve better. Entitlement is real in this generation. People just don't care about family anymore. It was like watching someone set your house on fire and then tell the neighbours you refused to water your own lawn. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I started taking screenshots. My instinct was to ignore it, move on. But the truth is, I'd been taught to move on since I was a kid. Every time my parents overstepped, made decisions for me, or guilt tripped me into compliance, it was always, just let it go. But this time, they lied, abandoned 3 kids, and then tried to publicly destroy my character to save face. So I opened a blank post. My fingers shook a little, but I started typing anyway. Let's clear a few things up. Yesterday, I visited my parents' house for Christmas morning. I made it explicitly clear beforehand that I would not be available to babysit for the week. When I arrived, they were gone. Everyone my dad, mom, aunt, uncle had left on a vacation, leaving me alone with 3 underage children without my consent. They counted on my sense of responsibility to trap me into compliance. What they didn't count on was me calling their bluff. I threatened to report them for child abandonment unless they returned within the hour. They did. But now they're trying to paint me as the villain online. Let me be clear, I love my nieces and nephew. I do. But love is not the same as submission. Being family does not mean sacrificing your autonomy. And if that boundary offends you, maybe it's not me who has the problem. I hit post before I could second guess myself. The response was almost immediate. Dylan was the first to comment. "You did the right thing. Always." More friends followed. Classmates from college, even a couple of co-workers. Some shared the post. Others added their own stories about family pressure, being taken advantage of, guilt masquerading as love. And then things got weird. My grandparents, yes. Linda's own parents chimed in. Grandma Rose commented, "Thomas, Linda, Brian, Karen, this is unacceptable. You owe Ethan a sincere apology. You've been mistreating him for years." I actually teared up reading it. A moment later, I got a text from Grandpa George. "Can you call me?" "We need to talk." I did. His voice was steady, warm, but disappointed. "I've spoken to your parents," he said. "They know they were in the wrong." "Doesn't seem like they care," I replied. "They're more upset about me posting it publicly than anything else." "They're embarrassed," he said. "But embarrassment is earned. What they did was reckless and disrespectful." He paused. "Your grandmother and I support you fully." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "Thank you." Still, that peace didn't last. By the end of the night, my notifications were a war zone. The Carter family group chat was on fire. My cousin sent me a screenshot where Aunt Karen called me an attention seeker. Uncle Brian accused me of airing dirty laundry. My mum messaged me directly. "I never thought you'd stoop this low. Congratulations on turning your back on your family during the holidays." The nerve. But they weren't prepared for what happened next. Apparently, someone reposted my story on a local subreddit. Then a lifestyle blog picked it up. Brooklyn man shares shocking holiday betrayal by family and people can't get enough. Within 48 hours, my post had over 10,000 shares. People started commenting with their own experiences. Same thing happened to me, but I didn't have the guts to walk away. Just because they're blood doesn't mean they get to use you. Family is mutual respect, not free labor. It was overwhelming, but validating. And just when I thought it couldn't get stranger, I got a call. It was Linda. I let it ring. Then came the voicemail. We're willing to talk, but you need to take the post down. It's damaging our reputation. There it was. Not, we're sorry. Not, we messed up. Just reputation control. Later that night, my grandfather texted again. I believe you should consider speaking with a lawyer. This isn't just toxic. It might actually be legal territory, especially the way they're framing you online. I didn't answer right away, but the idea stayed with me. They had crossed every line, tried to ruin my name, and continued to act like I was the one being dramatic. Maybe it was time to take the next step. Not just to protect myself, but to finally end the cycle. I didn't plan on becoming that guy, the one who airs family business on social media, who escalates things with legal threats. But there's something about being publicly lied about by your own parents that shatters any illusions of diplomacy. So, yeah, maybe I was that guy now. The online attention snowballed fast. My inbox was filled with strangers thanking me for saying what they'd never had the nerve to say out loud. My story had hit a nerve, and not just in my neighborhood. A small podcast reached out asking if I'd like to share more. I declined. I wasn't trying to become a spokesperson for family dysfunction. I just wanted my life back. But my parents had other plans. On the third day after my post went viral, Linda made a new Facebook update longer, more venomous, and clearly intended to clean up their image. We've tried everything. We apologized privately and publicly. But it's hard when your own child twists the truth for likes and attention. We love our family. That love is not returned. Except they hadn't apologized. Not once. Not sincerely. The closest thing was, we're willing to talk if you take the post down. Not sorry. Just damage control. Even worse, Thomas. My dad jumped in the comments to say I was emotionally unstable and had always been difficult. I stared at the screen. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. This was defamation. When I told Grandpa George, his reaction was instant. Enough. You're contacting a lawyer. It felt dramatic. I hesitated. I don't want this to blow up more, I admitted. It already has, he replied. But now? Now you protect yourself. So I did. 2 days later, I sat across from Michael Gale, a well-dressed, no-nonsense attorney who'd handled family harassment and defamation suits before. He didn't flinch at the story. He just took notes like he'd heard 100 versions of it. You've got a solid case, he said. What they've done isn't just manipulative. It's potentially unlawful, especially the online comments implying mental instability and falsifying your behaviour. Not to mention leaving minors in your care without consent. So, what happens now? I asked. We'll start with a formal warning. Cease and desist. If they keep pushing, we move to civil litigation for emotional distress and reputational harm. I left his office with a copy of the letter in my bag. It felt surreal. That night, we sent it. A certified cease and desist notice to Thomas, Linda, Brian, and Karen, clearly outlining their actions' abandonment, digital defamation, coordinated harassment, and warning them to stop immediately or face legal consequences. I hoped it would be enough. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. If anything, it pissed them off more. Uncle Brian took to Instagram, claiming I was trying to sue my own blood for clout. Aunt Karen posted on a local community page that I was unstable and lashing out after refusing to take responsibility for my family. And then came the worst part. I received an email from Thomas, cold, blunt, and patronizing in every word. Ethan, we've done our part. We apologized publicly, even if you didn't like how it was worded. You threatening to call CPS was completely out of line. We never abandoned the kids, we left them in your capable hands. You embarrassed this family, and until you fix it, you are not welcome at any future family gatherings. Dad. I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to Michael Gale, who called me 5 minutes later. This is gold, he said. Their own words admitting what they did and denying wrongdoing while doubling down on the public attack. It strengthens our case. And just like that, I knew we were going to court. I didn't want money, I didn't even want revenge. What I wanted, what I needed, was to be heard, to be respected, to stop being painted as a problem when all I ever did was ask for boundaries. Filing the lawsuit was anticlimactic, a form, a signature, a notice delivered. But the impact? Immediate. My parents went silent. Aunt Karen deleted her post. Uncle Brian posted a vague quote about family betrayal and lawyers ruining everything. I didn't reply. The court date was set 6 weeks out. Until then, I kept my distance, stayed quiet. I wasn't about to let them twist my actions into some kind of tantrum. In the meantime, something strange happened. People rallied. Old co-workers I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me. People from college who remembered how I always volunteered for everything, without complaint, how I always said yes. One even wrote, I don't know if this means anything, but I always saw you as the guy who put everyone else first. I'm glad you're putting yourself first now. And that meant everything. But even as support came in waves, I still felt the ache of loss. Not just the superficial kind, the PR nightmare my family was facing. The real kind. The realization that your parents don't respect you as a person, that they never did. That, in their eyes, your value starts and ends at what you can do for them. I'd grown up hoping I'd eventually earn their approval by being good, helpful, accommodating. Turns out, the moment I stopped being useful, I became disposable. But now, I had something better than their approval. I had boundaries, and I was done apologizing for them. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined. No soaring ceilings or dramatic lighting, just cheap carpet, fluorescent lights, and a judge who looked like she'd seen 100 families rip themselves apart before lunch. Still, I couldn't breathe right when I sat down. Across from me were Thomas, Linda, Brian, and Karen. Their faces looked worn, not out of remorse, just from stress. Reputation stress, legal stress, image stress. Not once did they look at me like I was family. My attorney, Michael Gale, walked me through everything again before we began. I had my timeline, the screenshots, the emails, the original Facebook post from my mother, the follow-ups from my father, the community page slander from my aunt and uncle, and most importantly, witnesses. Grandpa George and Grandma Rose sat right behind me, calm, composed, ready to testify. When the judge called my name, I stood. I felt like my whole body was vibrating, but I told my story. I didn't embellish it. I didn't dramatize it. I didn't need to. They left 3 minor children in my care without consent. They ignored my clearly stated boundaries. They spread damaging, false accusations about my mental health and character online. They made me out to be selfish for not abandoning my own life, to clean up their irresponsibility. Michael laid it all out methodically, without theatrics. The screenshots did most of the talking. When my parents' side spoke, it was a bizarre mix of denial and deflection. Linda claimed it had been a misunderstanding. Thomas said he thought I was just being dramatic. Karen actually rolled her eyes during questioning. But it was the judge's expression that told me everything. She didn't buy it. And when Grandpa George testified, his voice calm but cutting, the room shifted. "This isn't about a vacation," he said. "It's about years of pushing Ethan to serve everyone but himself. This was just the first time he said no, and they punished him for it." The judge nodded, scribbled notes, and asked no follow-up questions. That silence was louder than anything else that had been said all day. A week later, we got the ruling. I won. The judge declared the behaviour of Thomas, Linda, Karen, and Brian to be coordinated and damaging harassment. She issued a restraining order to prevent further direct contact and awarded damages for emotional distress and reputational harm. They were also required to publicly retract their statements across the same platforms they used to defame me, word-for-word apology, reviewed by my attorney. Reading their forced apology online felt strange, like watching an actor deliver lines they didn't believe in. We acknowledged that our public comments regarding Ethan Carter were false, inappropriate, and damaging. We apologize for misrepresenting events and for our failure to respect Ethan's boundaries. We regret our actions and accept full responsibility. The internet didn't exactly forgive them. Blogs that had picked up my side of the story updated their articles with screenshots of the ruling. A few even added update, "Justice served." But justice didn't feel triumphant. It felt necessary. Weeks passed. I didn't reach out to anyone from that side of the family, and I didn't hear from them either, not after the court order. The silence was almost more jarring than the conflict had been, like walking through a house that used to be filled with shouting, now just dust and echoes. Dylan helped me move into a new place in the spring, bigger, brighter, with room for an actual desk finally. He brought pizza and beer and we sat on the floor of my new living room. "You good?" he asked. I nodded. "Getting there. You ever think they'll come around?" I thought about that. I really did. "I think they'll regret what they lost," I said, "but I don't think they'll ever admit it." And I've stopped needing them to. The years that followed were a mix of healing and rediscovery. Nathan, Sophie, and Ellie stayed in touch, especially once they were old enough to have phones and accounts. Their parents didn't monitor. At 18, Nathan moved in with me for college. I helped him get his license. He called me E. I never told him not to love his parents. I just showed him what love without conditions looked like. Sophie and Ellie started visiting during summers. Their parents, too ashamed to admit they couldn't control them anymore, quietly let it happen. As for Thomas and Linda, well, the fallout came for them. After the court case, my father lost standing at his firm. He was asked to take early retirement. My mother resigned from her volunteer roles, citing emotional stress. Truth was, the community turned cold. You don't get to preach family values and then abandon your grandkids for cocktails and cruise ships. Brian and Karen's boutique shut down within the year. Negative Google reviews from angry strangers. No shows at appointments. A local mum blogger even called them out as the aunt and uncle from that story. They moved to another state. Last I heard, they rent now, but I don't check anymore. I don't need to. Now, 10 years later, I live with my wife and our daughter in a quiet neighbourhood where no one expects me to solve their problems without asking. I tell my kid the truth. Respect is a two-way street. Even in families. She's 5, so she doesn't get it yet. But she will. Sometimes the old ache still returns. When I see a family laughing at brunch, when I get tagged in a memory I'd rather forget, when Ellie asks why her mum doesn't come to see her dance recital. But I've learned this. You can mourn what you lost and still celebrate what you built. And what I've built, my peace, my people, my voice, is worth more than any illusion of family I left behind. Story 2. I always figured marriage would be about compromise. Little sacrifices here and there. Maybe you argue about furniture or what show to binge next. I didn't expect to be the husband who watched his pregnant wife fly off to another country hand in hand with her high school sweetheart. Yeah, that actually happened. My name's Marcus. I'm 34, and up until a few weeks ago, I thought I had life pretty well figured out. A decent job in architecture, a solid friend group, a marriage built on what I thought was mutual respect. Then came the sucker punch. It started with a Facebook post of all things. Samantha, my wife of 3 years, had uploaded a photo from her trip abroad. She was beaming, her belly just starting to show, clinging onto the arm of some guy I'd never seen before. The caption? "Even though we can't be together, I'll always carry your child, Damien." The first read that twice. Then I zoomed in. Yep, they were holding hands. That's when the silence inside me cracked. I didn't post a long rant, just left a short comment. If this is love, shouldn't I be moving out by now? And then I started deleting the life we'd built. First, I cancelled the postpartum care suite I'd booked months ago. It cost me nearly $12,000 up front, one of the best facilities in Northern California. Next, I called the OB-GYN clinic and withdrew my info from all upcoming appointments. Every baby-related item I'd ordered, crib, stroller, diapers in bulk I returned or donated. Watching the nursery go back to being a guest room felt surreal. After that, I hit up my 2 closest friends for drinks. I needed to not think for a while. We grabbed a booth at our regular spot downtown. The music was loud enough to drown out our laughter, the drinks strong enough to soften the blow. Until my phone lit up. Samantha. The buzz on the table killed the mood instantly. "Maybe you should head home, man," Nick said, eyeing the screen. "Yeah," Brian added. "Last thing you need is her blowing up your night." But I was done tiptoeing. I let the phone ring out, made a show of flipping it over screen down, and forced a grin. "Let her stew." Nick leaned in. "You serious?" I nodded, dead serious. "When she gets back, I'm filing for divorce." That quieted the table more than I expected. For a second, no one spoke. Then Brian raised his glass. "To freedom," we clinked. 15 minutes later, the phone buzzed again. Against my better judgment, I picked up. "What the hell, Marcus?" Samantha's voice tore through the speaker. "You ignore my calls now?" "Who do you think you are?" I stayed calm. "What do you want?" "I want to know why you cancelled the postpartum centre." "They called me Marcus. If I hadn't picked up, I'd still be in the dark." "Are you even planning to be part of this kid's life?" I didn't answer that. She kept going. "I want you to fix it. Book the centre again and wire me another 10 grand. Damien and I want to stay here a few more days." That name again, that was the moment I laughed loud and bitter. "You've completely lost it. You think this is funny?" she screamed. "Say that again, Marcus. I dare you. Or maybe I should be the one filing for divorce." She'd pulled the divorce card before too many times. It used to make me scramble, apologise, beg, but not anymore. I took a deep breath, raised my drink and said, "Fine, let's get divorced," and hung up. The table erupted in stunned silence. Then Nick chuckled. "Holy shit! You actually did it!" "Damn right," I said. "Now let's drink to that." For the first time in years, I actually meant it. I stumbled home that night buzzed and oddly exhilarated. I crashed on the bed, thinking about all the things I'd done for Samantha. The first, quit smoking. I stopped going out. Handed over my paycheck like clockwork. She joined Pilates, started vegan meal kits, even signed up for acting classes all funded by me. Somewhere along the way, she stopped saying thank you. She started acting like it was all owed. But not anymore. Next morning, there was pounding at the door. At first, I thought it was construction. But then came the yelling, "Marcus, open this door right now." It was her mother, Carol. Great. When I opened the door, she stormed in like it was her place. Behind her was Paul, Samantha's dad. His arms were folded, his face unreadable. "You have some nerve," Carol snapped, cancelling medical appointments for a pregnant woman. What kind of man does that? I poured myself a glass of water, the kind whose wife runs off with her ex and posts about it online. Carol's face twisted. "You're exaggerating." She posted a photo, Carol, holding hands, telling him she's carrying his baby. "She's coming home alone," Paul said stiffly. "And is she bringing Damien too?" I asked coldly. That got silence. Then Carol added, "By the way, I heard you got a big bonus. $160,000 from that tech firm. When are you transferring it to Sam?" I laughed. "That's not happening. I'm divorcing her." Carol gasped like I'd slapped her. "You're bluffing." "Nope," I said, sipping. "She crossed the line. You all did." Paul tried to chime in, going on about thinking of the child and being mature, but I cut him off. "You want to talk about kids?" I snapped. "Because far as I can tell, the baby's not mine." That shut them up. "I spent years being your punching bag," I added. "I supported Sam, put up with your constant interference. You treated me like I was some side character in your little drama, but not anymore." Paul narrowed his eyes. "You'll regret this." "The only regret I have," I said, opening the door, "is not doing it sooner." They left, reluctantly. I spent the rest of the day packing. Everything of Samantha's photos, clothes, makeup kits went into boxes. I piled them near the door and cleaned the apartment top to bottom. It was the most cathartic Saturday of my life. That evening, the text started. First, from Samantha. Angry, then pitiful, then threatening. By midnight, I'd blocked her number. I knew she wasn't done. Not by a long shot, but neither was I. The next night, just past 10, I heard banging at the door again. I already knew who it was. Sure enough, there she stood, Samantha, flanked by her parents. Her face was a mix of fury and panic, like someone who'd been planning a victory lap and instead walked into a brick wall. "What the hell, Marcus?" She snapped before I could even open the door all the way. "You block my number, pack up my things, and pretend this marriage never happened?" I leaned against the doorframe, calm. "You made that call the moment you boarded a flight to France with your ex, Sam." She scoffed like she couldn't believe I was still bringing it up. "It was just a trip. You're overreacting." I shook my head. "You hugged him in photos, told him you were carrying his child. I'm not overreacting. I'm waking up." She tried to push past me, but I stepped in her way. "Nope, you're not coming in. Your boxes are right there. You can take them and leave." "Are you serious right now?" she said, raising her voice. "After everything I've done for you?" I laughed, short and sharp. "Everything you've done for me? Like what exactly? Spend my money? Trash my friends? Cheat on me and call it confused emotions? Yeah, thanks. Really?" Her mum, Carol, jumped in. "You're being cruel, Marcus. She's pregnant. With someone else's kid," I said plainly. That shut them up for a second. Samantha's voice dropped an octave. "You're not even going to support your child?" I looked her dead in the eye. "It's not my child, Sam. She didn't deny it. Just crossed her arms and looked away." Paul, her dad, tried to sound reasonable. "Look, Marcus, let's not escalate this. We're still family." "No, Paul," I said. "We're not. You and Carol have treated me like garbage from day one. Talking over me, showing up unannounced, acting like your daughter married beneath her." He opened his mouth, then closed it. For once, the man had nothing to say. Samantha sniffled dramatically. "I gave you everything. You gave me stress, manipulation, and a front row seat to my own humiliation," I said, stepping back inside. "Take your stuff and leave, or I call the cops." That was the final line. They left in a huff, dragging boxes behind them. No goodbye, no apology, just slammed doors and a hallway full of awkward silence. I locked up, poured myself a whiskey, and sat on the couch. For the first time in years, the place felt quiet in a good way. No nagging, no fake smiles, just peace. But it didn't last long. By Tuesday, Samantha had filed for temporary alimony. She wanted emergency support and a share of our joint assets, which, to be clear, were 90% built on my salary and savings. My lawyer, Maya, was a no-nonsense type, ex-military. Brilliant, sock cold. Just what I needed. She reviewed the paperwork, looked up and said, "She's bluffing. We'll bury this." We filed a counter-motion the same day. Attached to it was evidence screenshots of her Facebook post, receipts of her trip, and the texts where she threatened to ruin me if I didn't keep funding her European vacation. A week later, she started bleeding support. Friends who used to side with her started calling me, confused. They'd seen the pictures. They'd heard the gossip. Turns out, her little love story with Damien didn't sit well when people realized she was using pregnancy to manipulate both of us. Even her own cousin reached out to say, "Look, man, I had no idea. I'm sorry." That felt good. But what came next felt even better. A co-worker, Mel, sent me a screenshot from Instagram. Samantha was bragging in a story about throwing a party with her soulmate Damien and celebrating new beginnings. Funded, of course, by generous support. My support. I saw red, but I didn't text her, didn't rage post. I stayed quiet, because Maya and I were already preparing for the long game. We filed to review the alimony order, claimed fraud, misuse of funds, and cohabitation with another partner. If we proved Damien was living with her and benefiting from my money, it would nuke her case. But I wanted more than legal revenge. I wanted truth, so I hired a private investigator. Low-profile guy, professional. Within 2 weeks, he had a full report. Photos of Damien driving the car I'd paid off, lounging at their Airbnb with wine bottles and baby gear I recognized. Even better? Screenshots of social media posts since deleted where Samantha joked about making the ex pay for the honeymoon phase. I sent everything to Maya. She smiled. Let's go nuclear. We set up an anonymous Instagram account, posted 1 photo a day. No captions, just proof, evidence, conversations, dates, payments, timelines. It didn't take long for the dots to connect. People started commenting, sharing, asking questions. By the time her baby shower rolled around, half the guest list had ghosted her. The day of the party, I got a message from Mel. "Yo, Samantha's party's a disaster." Damien stormed out, yelling, total chaos. Apparently, someone had shown him the Instagram posts mid-toast. He exploded, called her a liar, said she was dragging him down. They argued, loudly, in front of everyone. Damien accused her of manipulating both of us, said he was done being her puppet. He left. People followed. The cake was untouched. She posted a sad selfie later, captioned, "Some people just can't handle the truth." Yeah, okay. The next few days, silence. Then the phone calls started. Blocked numbers, unknown emails. "Let's talk. You're overreacting. I still love you." I ignored them all because I knew what she really wanted, money. But that train had left the station and crashed into a canyon. 2 weeks later, we were back in court. Maya shredded her claims. Damien had moved out. Samantha was in debt. The judge lowered her alimony to almost nothing, just enough to cover basic prenatal care. Temporarily. Her face when the verdict dropped? priceless. Outside the courthouse, I felt something shift. Like the last weight finally came off. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't need her to suffer. I just wanted my life back, and that's exactly what I was building. After the court ruling, things got quiet. Samantha disappeared from my radar. No calls, no emails, no new Instagram stories of sunset wine dates with Damien. Just silence. A strange kind of peace, like after a storm. The streets are still wet, the air smells like ozone, but the thunder's gone. Word got around that she moved back in with her parents. Not surprising. Damien left a week after the party fiasco, apparently packed his stuff while she was asleep, and ghosted. From what I heard, he's trying to rebrand himself as some kind of creative entrepreneur. Good luck to him. Hard to build a legacy on someone else's dime. Her parents, Carol and Paul, didn't fare much better. They'd spent years defending her every move, pushing their way into my life like I was some employee at their daughter's company. Now they were the ones stuck cleaning up her mess. Their own circle started distancing themselves too. Some people have long memories, and apparently, word of their meddling had finally made it out of the echo chamber. I wasn't trying to gloat. I didn't need revenge anymore. The world had a funny way of balancing things when you got out of the way. Instead, I focused on rebuilding. The apartment felt different now. It was mine not just in name, but in spirit. I painted the walls, got rid of that tacky glass coffee table Sam insisted on, hung up some art from local vendors I liked, started cooking again. Real meals, not just takeout and microwaved peace offerings. I also reconnected with the people I'd pushed away. Nick and Brian came over more often. We played poker, grilled on the weekends, talked about everything except her. That was the unspoken rule. What was gone, stayed gone. We looked forward. Work started picking up too. I'd been headhunted by a firm in Seattle that loved my recent project portfolio. They offered me a lead role on a new sustainable housing development. It was the kind of opportunity I would have passed on before. Too far, too uncertain, not something Samantha would have approved of. But now I didn't hesitate. I moved in late March. Seattle was cold and wet and exactly what I needed. New energy, new skyline, no history hanging over my shoulders. I rented a loft near Capitol Hill with big windows and creaky floors, the kind of place that lets in the morning sun and creaks like it's alive. I got a dog, a mutt named Scout I found at a shelter. He's half lab, half hurricane, always wagging and knocking stuff over, but he made the apartment feel like home. Some nights I'd sit by the window, watching the rain slide down the glass, Scout snoring at my feet, and I'd feel something I hadn't felt in years' stillness. The kind that doesn't come from silence, but from peace. No pretending, no eggshells, just life, steady and slow. Now and then, her name still came up. A friend from back home would message me, "Hey, you won't believe what Samantha posted." I never clicked. Didn't need to. I didn't care if she was playing the victim, or if she'd found someone new, or if she'd gone full spiritual influencer. That story wasn't mine anymore. One time, though, curiosity got me. A mutual friend sent me a screenshot of a long-winded Facebook post. She made something about betrayal, forgiveness, and learning to love yourself through pain. There were hashtags, the usual vague quotes. She never mentioned me directly, but it was clear she wanted sympathy. I stared at it for a second, then deleted it. Some things don't need a response. Not long after, I ran into Maya, my lawyer, at a networking event in Seattle. She raised a glass and asked, "So, still feel like it was the right move?" I laughed. "Absolutely." "Good," she said, "because I have clients who back out at the last second. Not you. You went full scorched earth. I shrugged. Sometimes the forest needs to burn before it grows again. She smiled. I like that. And honestly, I did too. Because everything that happened, every lie, every insult, every time I said yes, when I should have said no, it all taught me something. Not just about Samantha, about me. I let it happen. I handed over my boundaries one by one, thinking love meant sacrifice. I thought being patient and supportive would earn me respect. But respect doesn't come from suffering in silence. It comes from knowing where your line is and making damn sure no one crosses it. That's what I carry with me now. Not anger, not bitterness, just a sense of self I didn't have before. A few months ago, I met someone. Her name's Jordan. We bumped into each other at a bookstore, both reaching for the same copy of Norwegian Wood. Classic cliché, I know, but it felt easy, natural, no games. She's a photographer, runs her own business, drinks too much tea and forgets where she parked, but she listens. Like, really listens. I haven't told her everything yet. Not the whole Samantha saga. Maybe someday I will, but for now it's enough that she knows me as I am, unfiltered, honest, still figuring it out. And that's the point, really. You don't have to have everything together. You just have to stop pretending. If there's anything I've learned, it's that healing isn't loud. It's not some dramatic moment where you scream into the night or burn every photo. It's small, quiet, a decision you make each morning to protect your peace, a choice to move forward, even if the road behind you still smokes a little. So yeah, Samantha got her karma, but I got something better. I got my life back. And this time, I'm not giving it away. Story 3. You ever go to a class reunion thinking it'll be uneventful, only to get blindsided by the ghost of your past? Yeah, that was me last weekend. It's been 6 years since I broke things off with my ex, Natalie. I've built a new life since then. New city, new job, new everything. I even have a beautiful wife, Dana, and the most hilarious little daughter, Zoe. But nostalgia got the best of me, and I showed up at the reunion out of curiosity, thinking, what's the worst that could happen? Well, the worst walked in arm with her much younger boyfriend, Ryan, and announced to the room they were engaged. The place exploded. Cheers, gasps, even a couple of snide chuckles. I knew eyes were darting toward me, waiting for some kind of meltdown or petty scene. But I wasn't about to give them that satisfaction. So I smiled, pulled out my phone, and transferred $1,000 to Natalie as a congrats gift, right in front of everyone. You could hear a pin drop. Natalie looked like she'd seen a ghost. She yanked me aside and whispered, "Liam, it's been 6 years. Isn't that enough time for you to get over it? This thing with Ryan? It's just to calm his family down. Once it's over, I'm coming back to you," I laughed. Not loudly, just enough for her to hear the irony in it. "Natalie, I'm married. I have a kid." And just like that, she crumbled. Tears, shaking voice, the whole 9 yards. She started pleading, saying I was her forever, that she only stayed with Ryan because he needed her. But none of it mattered anymore. Not to me. You see, back in the day, I used to lose my mind over her. The jealousy was eating me alive. One lunch with Ryan and I'd spiral. But now I felt nothing. Watching her beg didn't bring me joy or revenge, it brought clarity. She tried to argue. Said we were just on a break all these years. Claimed I never really broke up with her. I had to remind her I literally blocked her on every platform, moved out, and sent a goodbye email. If that's not a breakup, I don't know what is. I started walking out, not planning to get dragged into her drama again. But of course, Natalie and Ryan followed me into the hallway. Ryan tried the good guy act, said the engagement was fake, meant to satisfy his relatives back home. Even offered to call it off if I was really upset. Before he could finish, Natalie cut him off, practically hissing, "There's no way we're cancelling this now." Oh, so now she cares about appearances. This was the same woman who, 6 years ago, left me stranded on the side of a snowy highway on our wedding day because Ryan was scared to be alone and needed her. I nearly died walking through that storm just to make it to the venue, only to call off the wedding in front of everyone, humiliated and alone. And where was Natalie during all that? With Ryan, playing nurse, posting selfies while I recovered from a fever alone. That was the last straw. I took a job overseas and disappeared for good. So no, I wasn't mad. I was done. I turned to Ryan and said, "I've moved on. If you haven't figured that out yet, you will soon." Natalie tried to guilt-trip me again. Ryan took off his engagement ring and held it out like it meant something. "This was yours originally," he said, smug as ever. I tossed it in the trash without blinking. Didn't wear it then. Not wearing it now. As I turned to leave, Natalie grabbed my hand. And that's when she saw it, my wedding ring. Her face froze. She gasped, "You're married? To her? How could you after everything we had?" I shrugged. "We broke up. You just didn't want to admit it." Ryan fake winced and leaned into her, claiming he had a headache. Classic deflection. She used it as an excuse to bail, mumbling something about taking him to a hotel. I didn't stop her. I didn't need to. And when she turned back, expecting me to beg like I used to, I smiled. "You're just my ex, Natalie. That's all." She didn't say another word, just stood there while I walked away, for the last time. After I left the reunion, I felt this weird mix of calm and exhaustion, like I'd just closed a door that had been creaking open for way too long. I wasn't mad, just relieved. All that old weight? Gone. I headed back to the hotel where Dana and Zoe were staying. We'd planned this trip as a mini vacation. The reunion was just a detour. I was looking forward to room service, cuddles, and maybe a lazy swim with my daughter. But, of course, life had other plans. As I walked into the hotel lobby, guess who I ran into? Yep, Natalie. And Ryan. Apparently, they were staying at the same hotel. The moment she saw me, her face lit up with this smug little smirk, like she was winning something. "Ryan?" He puffed up like a peacock. "Liam," he said with this fake concern, "you followed us here? Still hung up on Natalie, huh?" I didn't even respond. I was about to walk past when the elevator doors behind me dinged open, and Dana stepped out, holding Zoe's tiny hand. "Hey, love," she smiled, that calm, warm smile that always centers me. "You're back." Natalie's entire expression dropped. I saw it hit her, the ring on Dana's finger, the way Zoe ran into my arms yelling, "Daddy!" like it was the best part of her day. For Natalie, it must have felt like watching the life she thought she could reclaim belonged to someone else. She blinked, almost in disbelief. "You're married? With a child?" I nodded, gently placing Zoe on my hip. For years now, but she wasn't done. She squared her shoulders, looked Dana up and down, and scoffed. "So this is your wife?" Then she turned to Dana and added, "How long do you think this'll last? Liam and I go back 18 years. You're just a phase." Dana didn't flinch. She stepped beside me, looped her arm through mine, and said, still smiling, still calm, "I'm his wife. Your history. Try to keep up." Natalie's face went red so fast I thought she might actually explode. She raised her hand like she was about to slap Dana. I caught her wrist mid-air. "Natalie," I said, my voice low but firm, "don't. You don't get to act like this anymore." And then, slapped her hand away and shielded Dana like she was the only thing that mattered. "Because she is." Natalie stood there, stunned. "You hit me. For her?" Her voice cracked. "After everything I did for you?" I didn't say anything. There was nothing left to say. I turned to Dana, kissed her forehead, and asked if she was okay. She was. Stronger than I'd ever been in those moments. Natalie stormed off, dragging Ryan behind her like some sad consolation prize. Honestly, it was pathetic. That night, as we tucked Zoe in and ordered hot chocolate, I thought about how far I'd come. 6 years ago, I was broken, cold, and humiliated on what was supposed to be my wedding day. I thought I'd never bounce back, but if Natalie hadn't abandoned me then, I never would have ended up in Paris, limping around in the rain with a busted suitcase and a bruised heart. And I never would have met Dana, who offered me a cup of hot tea, a soft smile, and a new beginning. She listened. She saw me. She stayed. Natalie never understood love. She just wanted ownership. Possession, control. Dana taught me love doesn't hurt or beg or manipulate. It heals. The next morning, just when I thought we were finally done with the whole mess, Natalie showed up again. Alone this time. Sat at the table next to ours in the hotel restaurant like it was totally normal. "Liam," she said, as if we were mid-conversation, "you can't just erase me. You owe me." Dana gently squeezed my hand. I turned to Natalie, looked her straight in the eye and said, "I don't owe you a damn thing. You threw it all away. I built something better. Please respect that and move on." But she didn't move on. She stood up, slammed her hands on the table, and started going off about how she made me, how I wouldn't be who I am without her. At that exact moment, Ryan showed up. He looked at her like she was a ticking bomb and whispered, "What are you doing?" "This is embarrassing," Natalie snapped. You're the reason I lost him. You promised me the world and gave me nothing." Ryan didn't even argue. He just walked away, leaving her standing there alone. Then she turned to me, tearful again. "Liam, please." I was stupid. I was young. I can do better now. Just give me one more chance. Before I could speak, Dana did. Calm, graceful. "Natalie," she said, "you had your chance. He's mine now. And more importantly, he chose me." Natalie broke. Tears spilled. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. I stood up, took Dana's hand, and said one last thing. "I wish you peace. But it won't be with me." And we walked out, together, hand in hand. I didn't look back. After that scene in the hotel restaurant, I didn't feel victorious. Just done. Natalie had always treated our relationship like it was something waiting on pause. Like she could just press play whenever she felt ready. But life doesn't work that way. People move on. I moved on. She just never caught up to that truth. Dana and I spent the next few days exploring the city with Zoe. Museums, parks, lazy breakfasts. The kind of stuff that doesn't seem important until you realize it's what real happiness feels like. The simple moments. My daughter's giggle when she found a pigeon walking funnier than her dad. Dana quietly slipping her hand into mine while we waited at a crosswalk. No drama, no chasing, just love. I didn't think I'd hear from Natalie again. I figured that restaurant blow-up would have been her last hurrah, but I was wrong. A few weeks after we got back home, I was catching up on emails when one came in from a familiar address. Natalie. Of course, it was long, emotional, apologetic in that way people get when they realize they burned the last bridge and there's no other way across. She said she finally understood what she'd done, that she had spent years convincing herself I was just waiting like some backup generator she could flip on when the lights went out. She wrote about regrets, about how she never meant to hurt me like she did, how watching me walk away, seeing me with my wife and daughter, made her realize what she'd lost. I read it all, every word. And when I finished, I didn't feel anger, didn't feel pity either, just kind of quiet. There was a time I would have dropped everything for a message like that. Back then, a text from Natalie would ruin my week or light it up. But now, I closed the email, didn't reply. Not because I'm cruel, but because I meant it when I said goodbye. Natalie wasn't the one that got away. She was the one I let go. Later, I heard through an old friend that she and Ryan had broken up. Something about him moving back in with his parents after things went south. There were rumours, of course, that she was struggling, that she was spiralling. I didn't check, I didn't dig for updates. Because at the end of the day, her story isn't mine anymore. I've got enough on my plate keeping up with Zoe's chaotic toddler energy and trying to keep Dana from burning toast every morning. She can do gourmet French desserts, but God help her with a toaster. And honestly, that's enough for me. Sometimes, late at night, when the world's quiet and the kids asleep, Dana and I will sit by the window with a mug of cocoa and no TV on, just talking about nothing or everything. And that's when it hits me the most. This peace, this stillness, this is the life I never thought I'd get to have. And every time I remember how close I was to throwing it away, how close I was to reopening that old door, I hold Dana's hand just a little tighter, because some people never change. But I did. And that's what made all the difference.